hold it up too.
Somebody didn't have their stream muted. It's the time for the live show for Cinder. Whoop 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 whoop. Yeah, welcome to the Nostalgia Train, and it's that time of month again where we're having our live show discussion. And the February pick is indeed Cinder by Marissa Meyer, the 2012.
I should have let my husband buy the special edition of Cinder when we were at the store. We went on a book date this weekend, and we were buying some books, but we had already bought like a really cute Frankenstein copy and an Irish folktale. So I was like, we'll grab Cinder like at our next book date. But I was like, damn it, I could have had the special edition.
The other cover is really pretty. I put both the other pink cover on the thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this one too. But I don't think that's how her leg is described at all in the book.
No, it's not. But I like the symbolism.
The symbolism, yeah.
I imagine that's like her leg glamored or with the skin craft.
Yeah, it's a little bit misleading, but they kept the same font on both covers, which I think is nice.
It's a cool font. I like it a lot.
I like it too as well. It's quite nice. My copy has a big bend in it because obviously I bought this like secondhand for like $1. But that's how I get all my Nostalgia Train books. I think the only book I ever actually bought for a Nostalgia Train was Throne of Glass, and I've already donated it. She's no longer in my possession. Anyways, shall we do our regular spiel where we go around, introduce ourselves, promo anything we would like to promo, and say our experience with the old book?
Sure. I'm Mars. I run the YouTube channel Somber Honey Books, where I talk about reading and writing and other shenanigans. And Cinder is a book that I read for the first time last year. I actually read Cinder and the sequel Scarlet because I found Scarlet in a free little library, and then I just found an ebook copy of Cinder, and I adored them. So this year, when it was an option for the Nostalgia Train book club, I'm like, yes, please. And I actually got the rest of the series as a Christmas gift from my mother because she volunteers at a secondhand shop, and a series came in and she's like, did you ever read these books? Do you want them? I'm like, I already have book 2, but give me the rest, please. And so that is my experience with it. I actually binge read the entire series this month, so it's great.
It's a good series. I'm writing Mom Samantha. Yes, writing Mom Samantha L. Nassett. I did not forget my first name for a second. And on my channel, I talk about parent things, writer things, and writer parent things. Today, at 7 p.m. Central, I will be hosting a Let's Talk where we talk about the movie Pretty Woman. I'm looking forward to that. This is my third reread of Cinder in, I think, 2 years. I started reading it because my sister and my husband were both told me that I would really enjoy the series. And so I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And it is indeed the Sailor Moon Cinderella crossover, sci-fi crossover I didn't know I needed in my life. And I binged the whole series, like as soon as I could get my grubby hands on the holds at the library. So. Yeah.
If there's a dog barking in the background, I'm sorry. I'm Lynn. I have a channel I don't use very much called Writing Breakdowns. And I just happen to be doing a Year of Favorites readathon, which I haven't even promoted on that channel because it's not really related to what I had previously done. But I assume maybe the link is somewhere in the Nostalgia Train Book Club Discord. I don't know. If not, I can post it. But last month we did this together for, oh my god, what was the book we did? Magic. Wild Magic? Not Magic. I was like,
by Tamara Pierce.
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. It was a month ago. It feels like a long time. And then this month, you just happened to pick one that was also on the Year of Favorites Google Doc, and it was Zainab who had picked it as one of her favorites. So for the Year of Favorites readathon, I'm trying to read a bunch of my own favorites, but also like about 10 of other people's favorites, and that's one that I had picked. So I was like, I will be here again. And I originally read the book, I think in 2014, according to my Goodreads. I don't know how accurate that is. So this was a reread for me.
Oh, okay. So you guys are all rereaders, actually. Even though, Mars, you read it recently.
Yeah, like it was almost a year ago. It might have been like slightly less than a year ago.
Okay, so a mix, like, okay. Well, I'm a new reader. I always wanted to read this book because I thought the cover was really cool, and I knew that it was like sci-fi Cinderella, but that's like all I knew about it. I think I was actually intimidated by this book when I first heard about it. I don't know why. I don't know why. I just was. Maybe I thought that I was not, I don't know, cool enough to read sci-fi books. I don't know.
We all have our unexplainable feels sometimes. It's okay.
And I don't know. I just thought it was like, I think it was like kind of like a cool girl book at the time, and I was kind of like not a big reading when this came out, and yeah, so I just never got around to it. So, and then when I did get back into reading, it just was like, you know, one of those older books. So I knew when I started the book club that this was always going to be one of the books. I even think like if you go back and look at the very first like nostalgia train graphics that I put out, that this was always one that was in the graphic for the books that I wanted to cover. So I'm really glad that we have finally got around to it.
I don't know if it makes you feel better, but it took me like 2 years to actually read the first book from when my sister told me to, because I was worried about disappointing her. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to hate Sci-Fi Cinderella or not. So,
yeah. Now I love sci-fi, so, and I read a lot of sci-fi. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. So, let's jump into a discussion topic. Well, first of all, let's put up the spoiler spinner. And I have only read the first book. So, if any of you clowns try to spoil me, I will eat you. Oh, also, I wanted to say hi to our friends who are here joining us in the comments. We have Anna and we had Michael popping in to say hello. Feel free to tell us if you have heard of this book, read this book, or know anything about it. What do we want to start with? Plot and story beats. Normally this doesn't say story beats. We changed this last time, didn't we? What does it normally say?
I think it's plot and pacing.
It normally says plot and pacing.
I've been to plenty of these streams. I know now.
Thank you. We'll change it back to pacing.
I was like, it was alliterative. That is, so I was sitting there trying to figure out another P word.
Or should we just leave it? Pacing?
I like plot and pacing because it's alliterative.
Plot and pacing. Like this?
Yes.
Okay, plot
I
and pacing.
also think it fits better as a general term because not all writing has story beats per se.
Okay, so we're back to the topic, plot and pacing. How did we feel about the plot and pacing of this book?
I love the plot of the book. I like how certain things, because it's kind of it's a sci-fi novel, but it's also like a fairy tale retelling, and so there's certain plot points that one who reads a lot of fairy tales could take for granted, like Peony actually dying. That,
oh my god, yeah,
you know, you like when you're familiar with fairy tales and stuff. Well, two different kinds of fairy tales, because like it does, which I know we have a banner for fairy tales later, but it does fall in more of the like traditional fairy tales, which where it is like whimsy, it's also dark and grim. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't surprised by Peony dying, but I also didn't genuinely expect her to die. So I was like, oh damn, this is really going anywhere, isn't it? So
Yeah, I would
I
say
enjoyed
also
the
like the as far as like plot and pacing went, I would say it didn't feel like super predictable, but also it didn't like lull too much. Like there always seemed like
Yeah.
there was something kind of going on.
Yeah, I like how it didn't get too down with the sci-fi aspects. Like it's kind of just introduced to you and then we move on. It's not like in detail explaining
Yeah.
every little thing about it, and that certainly made it go by a lot faster.
Yeah, it incorporates it and it trusts the reader. This like you picked up a sci-fi book. You know the sci-fi things. There's like it doesn't take for granted that readers going into the book are going to be sci-fi readers. And so it'll like explain or provide enough context that you can very easily just follow all of the science part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the things that need explaining, she finds interesting and engaging ways to explain it, like shells and stuff with the doctor. I just fucking read this book this morning and I do not remember his name.
Erland?
Erland, yeah.
Yeah, Erland. Which I love him, by the way. He's one of my favorites.
I liked him too.
Yeah, I think the plot and pacing was really good. For the others who have also read the whole series, so I'm on book 2 now, so it's not fresh in my mind, but I didn't think like so much of book 1 happened the way it did. Like I guess I'm remembering more of like book 2 and onward for the rest of the series, so I was like, oh, this is taking longer than I remembered, but it didn't necessarily feel slow. But I was like, when is Cinder gonna leave? It's obviously not safe here. Get out. And she just like keeps going back to the castle, and I was like, I thought she left quicker than that. Like I thought she was gonna leave earlier in book 1. So I guess because I had, like you guys had binged the whole series, it was like, yeah, I couldn't really remember like how much of book 1 was her at the castle. So yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. In retrospect, because I remember that like when we did the Hunger Games way back in the beginning of the book club, and everybody was like, we're like halfway through the book and the Hunger Games haven't even started yet. We're like, what the fuck?
Wild how like your perspective can change when you know the context of how much. It's like, okay, so her leaving is, really early on in the plot, but it is the end of book 1.
Yeah. Yeah, like everything that happened in book 1 feels to me in my mind, from thinking of it from when I read it in 2014, as more like a prologue or something. I'm like, that was all jammed into like a chapter in my mind. I was like, wow, this was a whole book. Anyway, so I'm definitely.
I know Crystal and I also felt like that when we read Cirque du Freak. We like the whole first book where like we were expecting everything to happen. It was like the last page of the book, and we're like, oh, I guess that stuff doesn't happen until like the first pages of book 2. We were like waiting the entire book.
Yeah, that's how I feel like rereading it. I was like, there's a lot more setup than I remember. I thought we were gonna jump right in. So
okay, then I understand your feelings. Now I'm actually looking really forward to book 2. That
right, the fact that my brain compressed book 1 into like nothing, I'm like, the rest of the series is really great if that's what I did.
Well, I'm glad I have the library hold in already. So.
I'll say also with plot, there's so many different like plot threads and like arcs going on, and I think they're like woven together really well, and that is in part what keeps the pacing from feeling like it slogs even when it slows down.
Yeah, I like that there are a bunch of scenes that like serve several different subplots at once, like with the introduction of the romance with the two of them meeting also feeds into the greater plot because he's getting his android fixed, and that android plays into so much. And there's like a couple of little scenes throughout where, looking back on it now that I've read the whole thing, I'm like, that's bigger than I thought it was.
I love that Kai uses his nanny bot as his espionage bot. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to switch over to prose and writing style because I like how Marissa Meyer set up this sci-fi world, but I feel like she kept the prose very accessible for a YA reading level.
Oh, it's 100% Cinder's voice.
Yeah.
And Myers does a really good job of that. I'm trying to say this in the vaguest way possible, but like future books are told from different character perspectives, and she does a really good job giving each of those perspectives like a strong voice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the teenagers all sound like teenagers, right? And so that does keep it at a teenage level. And I love when I'm reading a YA that they feel their age and they sound their age, because I think that's like how it should be. So I really loved the writing style and the prose. And she does like, she updates the like slang and the lingo in such fun ways, though I cannot think of examples at the moment because my brain decided that I can't remember anything of this book I read this week.
Like how they say stars above is like an exclamation.
Yes. And I read the entire series and I am still unsure if my little crescent moon is supposed to be slang for lunar babies. I think it is, but could also just be a name. But that's like one of the slang that I thoroughly I heard that and I was like, oh, my little crescent moon for a butterbeer, that's so cute.
I actually almost didn't read these books last year because I never read Marissa Meyer growing up, but January of last year, so January 2023, I picked up Heartless, which is an origin story for the Queen of Hearts for a book club, and I DNF'd it because I absolutely hated like the main character and the way she acted and like just the voice of the character. So a couple months later, when I found Scarlet in the Free Little Library, I was like, do I actually want to do this? And I'm like, you know what? It was one book. We'll give this a chance. And I'm very glad that I did because I just gelled so much better with this story and these characters and everything. So, yeah.
No, I get that completely. Like some stories, if you don't hit with the author's voice and writing style, it can be. Yeah, but I did. I really liked immediately. I could just tell that I was going to like it. And I'm really glad because when you read a synopsis and you're like, oh, this sounds really good. And then you start reading it, you're like, oh, actually, I'm not gelling with the prose.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that the story was told in that, type of way, writing style that I was looking for.
I think that just like goes to add to the fact that she does narrative voice and character voice so well that like you can absolutely not gel with her narrative from one character and then just be completely entertained and indulge in a different one. Mm-hmm. I love when authors can do that.
Yep.
I also kind of forgot, again, it was back in 2014, but I forgot, even though the books have the characters on them, the name, but like I forgot that they were all from different point of views because she does such a good job of like tying each of the books together into like one story. So I don't want to talk about that too much, but just because you mentioned that like they have different point of view characters and they're all told from that, and that she does a really good job of like making them sound separate and yet Like my brain just like the story is one story, even though there are those different point of views. I don't know. She does a really good job. I haven't read Heartless Mars, so I don't know if that was a one off or just a character that you didn't vibe with. Because like Violet said, like sometimes it is just the author's writing style, and then other times it is that POV character that like you just hate. So.
Yeah, but I definitely think there's that sort of YA commercial voice, and Marissa Meyer like has it, like that YA-ism that you kind of talk about, like lightning in a bottle YA writing voice, and she can do it.
Yeah, I really like how this feels YA, but it's not like overwhelming with it, because like 2012 YA is such a specific vibe for books, and this definitely fits that, but it also feels kind of timeless in a way. Like reading it now 12 years later, I'm still absolutely loving this and like, the style that it's written in.
2012 YA, you mean like the YA before publishers oversaturated the market with adult books aged down, that YA?
Well, like I know when Sam and I did our stream for the Raven Boys, that was like one of my favorite books I read for the book club, and that book also had like this timeless feel of like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. I think good YA has that time, because like The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, that one also feels really timeless, because it's just a lot of YA focuses on adolescence, and like adolescence 200 years ago, adolescence now, same issues, same shit. It's a weird, awkward time when you're not a kid anymore and you're not an adult and you're going through so much shifting and changing and everything. And good YA stories like focus on that, at least on some level. So that's like always added into the overarching plot and like what they're dealing with. And like Cinder is dealing, like she deals with that so much because she is only 17 and she has no genuine control over her life. And some of the like plot blocks at different points are her stepmother, like controlling her, not treating her like a person, like literally not treating her like a person, right? And it's all like, oh, well, no, you can't leave because I'm your guardian. Oh, yeah, no, I'm signing you up for the draft and I can make you do that against your will because I'm legally your guardian. And so that's one of the reasons I love YA, and like good YAs that I feel like should qualify as YA. I don't think everything marketed as YA should actually be in the YA category, but this series definitely should be.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely something to say about the timelessness of this story, the fact that it is also retelling another timeless story. So, I mean, it's not trying to hide the fact that it's a retelling, obviously. It's very...
I never would have guessed from the...
in your face about it.
Yeah. It's so subtle.
But it's definitely not beat for beat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one for one. And I think I was expecting that. So when you open it up, I was like, oh, okay. Okay.
She did what my favorite fairy tale retellings do, and she took like the core and the soul of the Cinderella fairy tale and just like updated it for a modern audience. Because I so hate the criticism of Cinderella and how she was, this helpless damsel just waiting for a prince to save her, when really the whole like caution of the original Cinderella myth is just that because fairy tales are cautionary tales, and it's that she's like in an abusive situation, and it's like my brain is catching up, and she tries everything she can do but she tries to be a good person at the end of it. And so it's like trying to say that as long as you know, try to stick to your guns and your morals, you'll be able to like find a way out of bad situations, which isn't necessarily true, but it's fine. It's a fairy tale. And the people who abused her get their comeuppance in the fairy tale. And so she, is it Marissa Myers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marissa Myers. She like takes that core of this abused girl who is taken advantage of in her home life, and due to circumstances outside of her own, she can't escape it. And then she helps her be able to escape it with help. Because a lot of times, in order to escape that, you do need help to escape those situations.
I think my favorite part about this being a retelling is that it has all of the major points, but they're kind of rearranged to better fit the world that's been created. So, like, the ball in Cinderella is kind of like the inciting incident of the whole story, but here it doesn't come until Act 3, and it kind of finishes out the way things happen. And then there's like little nods to things that are important in the original fairy tale that aren't so prevalent here, like the big pumpkin carriage, and here is just an old beat up orange car. Like, I think it's so fun the way that she played with the original elements that make it such a familiar story, but also made it her own in this book.
Yeah, that was cute to see some of that stuff, and it kind of just made you giggle.
She reverse godmothered the dress, is instead of it being like ripped up and ratty and stuff, and then, you know, a fairy godmother cleans it up, it's like all nice and stuff, and then it gets ratty and terrible, so ripped up and dirty, and then that's how she shows up. And I was like,
yeah, there was definitely those fun moments like that. And it definitely subverted some expectations, especially since you had her, you know, quote unquote stepsisters, because they're not really stepsisters, because they're
it's like
not
a
really
family kind of.
Yeah, it's actually her adopted family, and they're not even evil stepsisters, because the one sister she actually gets along with. Trying on the dresses at the beginning, and then so as the reader, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, this is going to happen, and then it's actually like, oh no, that's actually not what's happening. And I don't know, I really liked that it was kind of pushing and pulling my expectations, and even the fact that we got to meet the prince right away at the beginning, and they had that interaction right away at the very beginning, and I was kind of like, wait, this is not how the plot beats are supposed to be going in this story. I signed up for Cinderella. What's going on? So I really liked that it played with my expectations of a retelling right from the jump.
Yeah, I definitely like that there's one sister that she likes. That was definitely like, oh.
Yeah, it was such a pleasant surprise.
Cinder has friends? Wow.
Yeah.
And then is Aiko her fairy godmother? Because she's the one that saves the dress.
She's supposed to be.
Or is it Arlen? I don't know.
I just think that there wasn't really a fairy godmother character.
I
wasn't sure. Yeah, I was also not sure.
I would say the doctor Arlan is the fairy godmother, because he does find a way for her to get funds and income and stuff and help her escape the prison.
That's a very good point. See, I put Cinder as her own fairy godmother for two important points. One is she fixes the car, so she like makes her own carriage to the ball, and then the glamour when she like does the whole magic to make herself look beautiful. That's what the fairy godmother does in the original. So I kind of liked how Cinder took a little bit more charge of herself in this than in the original.
Yeah, I kind of also had thought it was that she had no fairy godmother, and it was kind of like her own agency, and that there was other helping hands, but there was not a one-for-one fairy godmother.
I will say, I don't think the fairy godmother in the original Cinderella had anything to do with her agency. She just gave her tools. Cinderella is still the one who chose to go to the ball and do the things. So that's one reason. Like, I like the idea that the fairy godmother's role was probably split up between Cinder, Aiko, and Arlon, because they all three do fulfill different aspects of it. But yeah, in the original fairy tale, Cinderella had a lot of agency, and she did a lot of, like, she made her decisions. Nobody forced her to do them.
I really like that she had a reason to go to the ball other than that she wanted to go. Like the original Cinderella just wanted to go to the ball.
Ain't nothing wrong with wanting to go to a party, though.
I didn't say that, but I like that there was a reason for her to go, and she was trying to save Kai, especially where, like, all along she was like, I'm not going to the ball. So I was like, well, she's going to go to the ball, so what's the reason?
Yeah, there were, like, some really grave stakes and some definite her, like, being there. There was some tension. I also like that Kai is just, like, pining for her. He is so
into her.
Yeah, they definitely have a cute dynamic. And
I'll
as
say
sadly, I've never been super drawn to retellings. Like, I wanted to have absolutely zero inkling of where a story might go. It's a me problem, though. Okay, as somebody who has written a retelling, I take this as a personal slight to me. Thanks for hating me, Anna.
Should have said that you were a hack. No.
Yeah.
I will say Kai straddled the line sometimes with that, like, stir. She has told you no like 5 times. Okay? But I'm also like, it's cute, but it's also,
yeah, but I feel like again, if we're like comparing it to some other like YA, like, you know, romance is going on, like, she had some valid reasons why she was like keeping him at arm's length. Like,
she didn't know them.
Yeah, so it wasn't like where sometimes, you know, like in romances where the heroine's like, oh, but like we could never be together because, you know, this dumb miscommunication reason. Oh, she's like, okay, I'm like literally a cyborg. Like,
because he's all like, well, you into me, and she's like, well, yeah, but still I can't go, and he's like, but why? I like you.
I would like to point out that he is also a teenager at this point, and
yeah, I know he's
dumb.
a teenager, which like I said, which is why it's like it straddles the line for me. But he's all like, I like you, you like me, but why can't we do this? And she's sitting there like, because I'm a cyborg and you would hate me, and she's like, I just can't.
I don't know.
Like, isn't that still miscommunication?
Yeah, it's miscommunication, but like, girl's got a point. Like,
oh yeah, her no's were valid. I was just saying, like, the way he kept pushing. Like, after a certain point, I was like, I don't know if we should reward this behavior for this teenage boy in a position of power, but it's okay.
It didn't feel like too insta-lovey to me, though. Like, yes, he's kind of like flirty at first.
Like pining over each other.
Yeah, I agree. Like
he not.
Yeah, he does definitely have feelings for her pretty quick, but I don't know. I felt like at first it was just kind of like flirty and fun, and then at some point I'm like, oh, he has it bad.
Oh yeah, it was cute.
I will quantify my issue with, I read a lot of dark and questionable romances, so I ain't judging. I'm still into it. I ship them. I just feel it would be remiss not to mention that this is.
Well, I had even parts in the book where I didn't even know if they were going to get together, just because Marissa Meyer was like subverting so much crap. I was like, I don't even know if they're even going to be a couple, because like, I don't know what the hell she's doing here.
They're not together at the end of
yeah.
Cinder, and
I'm like, I don't even know what's going on here.
I'm all like, she's going to go to the moon and hook up with somebody else or something.
Yeah,
I'm just like. Oh, I also like, this is fairy tale retelling and plot and stuff. There are so many like hints and stuff in book 1 that you can pick up on a first read of book 1 for future fairy tales that are gonna be in the series, and I adored that, because like I'm huge into fairy tales and fairy tale retellings, and part of that's actually my dad, because of my dad's influence, which it's kind of funny because he's also one of the reasons I really like horror. But like when we watched the Disney movies and stuff, my dad would be like, in the original Grimm's fairy tale. So like he already, like from the time I could walk and talk, he was telling me about the difference in adaptations and whatnot. So it was fun testing like my knowledge of Grimm's fairy tales, where I was all like, is that? So
Yeah, reading the series,
I'm signing up for these.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but reading the series made me realize that I did not know the Rapunzel fairy tale whatsoever, because I was reading the book and I'm like, where is this a retelling of? And then I finished book 3 and I actually read the Cinderella fairy, or Rapunzel fairy tale, and I'm like, okay, now I see how it's a retelling, because I'm just like, I guess I just never read that and I didn't realize. I've also never seen Tangled, so I was so confused in
You've
book
never
3
seen
in regards to
Tangled?
being a retelling, but
Me neither.
I was like, there were some hints, and then like I found out book 2 was called Scarlet, and I was like, Marissa Meyer, I have one request for your Little Red Riding Hood retelling. It is a very specific and selfish request, but it is what I want. And it was what I got. And I was so pleased.
we'll have to
It's
kick
my
Violet
favorite.
out backstage so we can talk.
That's fine with me. Tangled is like top 5 Disney movies, though. You guys gotta watch it. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, I grew up poor, and we got a lot of movies bootleg, and I remember we got Tangled the same time that we got Thor, and Thor was broken in the way that it was just the first 20 minutes of the movie on loop. Tangled was broken in the way that it was entirely in shades of green. So I just never watched it.
Okay, that's an interesting fun fact.
I too grew up poor.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some sci-fi tropes. I enjoyed all the little android robots.
Yeah, I love and appreciate that she understands and correctly uses the difference between a cyborg and an android.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many stories don't, and it makes me sad. These are very specific things. So
Yeah.
I loved and appreciated that.
I love that Cinder's cyborg aspects are both a help and a hindrance. As someone who is disabled and loves disabled characters, the fact that, like, yeah, she's got this computer in her brain that hooks her up to everything, it's great, but she's also got, like, this heavy metal leg that she's got to walk on this tiny foot because she doesn't have an upgrade for it. Like, the balance between the two is just so well done that I literally cried the first time I read this.
I loved the descriptions of the leg. Like, some of them were so good.
It's just so well done in this book.
Yeah, it was I really enjoyed those descriptions.
Yeah, and then you have like the Lunars coming to Earth, and I mean, there's like the threat of war with the alien race, as we could call them, and they have superhuman abilities. So that's kind of another sci-fi trope.
I will say I did have to suspend my disbelief a little bit further for the Lunars, because I don't understand how moving to the moon would let people evolve to have all of these powers, but, like, I'll let it slide.
Yeah, that's true, but I was totally suspending my disbelief anyways. But
I will say the one thing that it gets me every reread is when they're at like the conference and they're showing the photos of the like the new lunar soldiers, yeah, super soldiers, and it's like they're all like talking about them, and it's like the teenager is the one that's like, she's baiting me, and I'm like, none of the other military people considered that could be a bait. America, You specifically. How are you failing me right here, American military leaders? Like, so, the like most interesting sci-fi trend / trope is that our most technologically advanced and primary civilization in the futuristic sci-fi is a mashup of America and China, because like fire, that was also a thing in Firefly, and that's a thing, and like that it's just a trend in sci-fi.
Well, I thought a sci-fi trope that you see quite often, and which is interesting in 2012, and then to come around again reading this now is obviously the sort of the pandemic virus trend. Like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I
That's
think
always a fun sci-fi trend.
I think I said that in the Discord. I was like, reading this after COVID, and reading it before COVID. I was like, this hits really different.
Genuinely, the pandemic was not even a major focus for me reading this. Like, I understand how big of a threat it is throughout the whole series, but I was completely focused on everything else. So when you said pandemic just now, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, it's a huge sci-fi trend in sci-fi, but in 2012, I mean, it was Ebola virus was a big thing back then. So it's not like it wasn't a real world thing back then as well. It's just COVID was a different level, I think, for us.
Mars, peony.
I forgot. Okay, it's been a couple of weeks.
It's been a couple of weeks.
I will say I didn't really connect it to pandemic, because like the moment I found out that lunars were immune to it, I was sitting here and I was like, I was like, it's the blankets. It's the blankets with the fleas and the smallpox. And then in the book later, the doctor, he's all like, it's like the plagues and the rats and the smallpox, and I was like, it's the blanket.
How dare you?
This is biological warfare, damn it!
But it's so
that was
interesting
like my theory from the moment he mentioned lunars were infected, which I will not say if I was right or wrong. That was just my theory from book 1.
Yeah, but it's so interesting that it's not like the lunars that were trying to conquer Earth that brought it. It was the ones fleeing to like be saved and come to Earth, right? It was all the shells that like accidentally infected people. So I was like, that's
yes, that is what the narrative told us, but that was not what I believed in book 1, because I know history very well.
Sam is over here with a cork board and some red string.
I'm like, this is why I am disappointed in the Americans at that military conference. I'm like, you know our history, damn it. Why don't you think these things?
That was a really good point that like Kai picked that up. Did not occur to me.
I'm not saying it's not believable that Kai did, because, one, it's not ego. He is at the center of this, and he knows that Lavana is like obsessed with him. So I'm like, no, he's in the right. Like, yeah, he should definitely figure this out. But I'm just looking at these other like military leader war strategists, and I'm like, none of you really, not a single one of you. Demote them all. We need new ones.
We need teenagers in the room.
Bring me all your teenagers.
The only other thing I wanted to mention was the artificial intelligence with Aiko and the trope of like her having a personality and being really like very human-like. So I really like
thirsty robot.
She's so cute.
It's her damaged personality chip.
She has the best. She's like the best character in the book.
She's great.
She's very beloved in the fandom, I've learned, because I've since delved into the fandom side on Tumblr, and people love Aiko so much.
She has an updated personality chip. I love that she wants an escort droid body because they're the most human. And I'm like, she reminds me of Dolly Parton, because the reason that Dolly Parton's like look, the reason she has her makeup and her clothes and everything is because when she was a child, she saw hookers on the side of the street, and she thought they were really pretty, and she wanted to look like them. And so her entire like country persona is based off of corner. Well, sex. I apologize. I don't know what the proper terminology for it is at the moment, which is fun because I'm going to be talking about Pretty Woman later. I gotta re-educate myself. But yeah, and I'm just like, so knowing what I do of Dolly Parton, and then like Aiko, I'm all like, I want to call her Dolly now. Little Aiko Dolly. Aiko Parton.
Yeah, it's a fun book. I liked it.
I will say Cinder's name being Cinder doesn't quite make sense, and is, I feel, only Cinder because of the Cinderella fairy tale. Because Cinderella was called Cinderella because she slept by the fireplace and was covered in soot and stuff. And presumably Cinder is called Cinder because she's a mechanic, but she works with grease.
Well, I mean,
Not soot.
I don't remember how much is revealed in this book and how much is other books, so I don't want to spoil anything, but the whole thing that we
But
learned...
her stepmom won't know that.
Her stepmom's not the one that named her, it was her dad.
It would be the dad.
No, her name is May. Her name is May. She has a name.
Why does it say that?
The doctor, he calls her Lynn May.
No,
And
May,
Lynn is their last
May
name.
means little sister, I think. It's a Chinese word. It's an honorific.
But
So
he's
like
not
they say
Chinese.
Lynn May, it's calling her by her last name and then an honorific.
I'm double checking.
Yeah, but I was confused because in the alternate cover, don't they actually draw her as Chinese, but then don't they admit in the thing that she was adopted in Europe?
She could still be Chinese.
Yeah, she can have some ancestry.
I don't remember the details, but you do find out.
I don't want to spoil
it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Violet, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure by the end of book 1, you know that she's the Lunar Princess.
Yes, that I think we know, right?
Okay, and then if you were paying attention, then the Lunar Princess was killed in a fire, and where they found body parts. So that's what I thought the Cinder was, which is not okay.
This doesn't help. In alternative
Because
names,
in
it says Lynn
some of the
Cinder,
other
Lynn May.
art I saw of her, they had everybody else. So I was like, oh, I was just a little bit confused by some of the.
But her dad is also, or Garin is not the one who names her Cinder.
Because they had specifically had said, because they had went out of their way to say, that wasn't her dad, that those were both of her adopted parents. So that's when I was like, okay, something's up here. Why wouldn't they have said that that's her dad, So then I had known, okay, this is not, something's more up with her parentage. That's always a red flag in books when they do that.
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay,
Violet,
so
when did you figure out what was happening with the Lunar Princess and her? Because I feel like rereading it, I was like, this is really obvious.
sorry.
Well, they had said, that wasn't her dad. And I was like, why would they have not just made it her dad? Like, why? I was like, there's something. Why would she have deliberately made the change to make this more convoluted and weird? So then I knew something is up with the parentage. I just didn't know what. So, and then when they'd said, oh, the princess is, missing and something, and then, the fire, I was like, okay, then that must be, especially since she had the missing limbs.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so.
Confusingly enough, May, the same spelling, is both a girl's name and means little sister. But usually when it means little sister, it's used twice. So it's May to mean younger sister. So
that's fair. Did you listen to it as an audiobook or did you read it? Because that might be confusion, because in the book when it's written out, it's Lynn hyphen all lowercase MEI.
Ah,
So
okay.
I guess it'd be more clear about that.
Yeah. Okay.
I see the confusion now. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to yawn. Have I got another banner?
Then my
Or-
center statement is retracted.
Or do you have any other sci-fi tropes you'd like to discuss before I find another banner?
I don't know if it's specifically like a trope, but the fact that the world has become just 6 mega countries
That's
kind of
definitely a trope.
so bad. Also,
that is definitely a trope.
because the UK and Europe are 2 separate countries, but all of North and South America is under one rule. No, I disagree with that.
That's just
That's
lazy.
So normally when America and China are smashed together, they are just smashed together. So the fact that there's like New Beijing is like America, Singapore, and China smashed together, but then there's also still America. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all doing over there? Like, how? Why?
Yeah, the fact that there's only 6 countries now, like that would not happen.
Yeah.
At least not in the combinations that we have.
When they were
Sure.
talking about the greater geography, I was just kind of like suspending all my disbelief because I was like, this world building is real shaky here.
I was just like, I'll ignore it because I'm not here for the sci-fi. I'm here for the fairy tales.
Yeah. That world building
Forget
is. Yeah, that's where things, show their cracks.
I will say, outside of favoritism for countries being very blatant, I like the way that Kai specifically, but the population in general, is shown to sort of lump cyborgs in with androids as like, oh well, now you're part robot, so you're not human. Especially since I also have a disability, and it's like that does feel how people treat you sometimes. Is just like you're not, at least you're not a normal person. And I like how Kai also holds those beliefs, but not like maliciously. It's just sort of something he was normalized to think. And like he specifically, he does hate the Lunars because he's been taught to hate the Lunars, and because, well, Queen Levana is not a stellar example of, like, she proves him right at every turn. But also he unwittingly interacts with 2 Lunars, even though Cinder doesn't know she's a Lunar. Like, the Doctor for sure knows he is one. Like, this whole time. And like with cyborgs, he's talking to Cinder normally and everything, and then he like sees the X-ray and he seems like taken aback a little bit, but then like he just continues on.
I do wish we saw more cyborgs in this, because besides Cinder, we only really see one cyborg, and it's this guy that they just let go, and then she comes in,
32-year-old
part of the scene. And like, it would have been really cool if we see her interact with other cyborgs or see like something. It just feels like it's not necessarily that something's missing there, but there could have been this added element to it.
Cyborg support group.
I totally agree with that. No, that would have been really cool. But that scene with that guy, that was cool. I'm glad I at least had that. I'll take that bone.
I like the nurse who, like, 100%, I would have been her. I would have been like, so only the young teenage girls, huh? Huh? You fucking weirdo. You pervert. What the fuck is wrong with you?
So good.
Yeah, but then, like, of course, like, because we know why then they wanted to find, her.
Well, we know why later. Like, at first, that was with her. I was like, this man's all kinds of red.
Yeah, but it was funny. It was a good scene.
He becomes, like, one of my favorite characters, and I'm like, red flags rescinded.
It was really funny.
I don't know if it's a trope, but the fact that, like, she herself doesn't realize how much of her is a cyborg was interesting. Like, because then she's seeing the scan and she's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, that was cool too.
Like, my fucking heart, my brain.
There's
I'm
this
like, that was.
um
Sorry, go ahead.
there's this duology that I no longer own because I gave them to my cousins because I want my cousins to read good books, but it's about this, it's like a sci-fi dystopian kind of, where there's this prison world. So the first book is called Incarceron, and it's about it's been a long time since I read it, but this boy who's like born in the prison world, and when people are born there, the prison is like kind of a character in itself, and so sometimes people are born not entirely human, and those people can't leave because they're not entirely human. And there's just this scene where one character finds out how much of himself is made up of this prison, and it feels very similar to the scene where Cinder discovers how much of herself is cyborg, and seeing those parallels, it kind of just like shook me for a moment when I was reading this.
So maybe
Yeah.
it is a trope then. I wasn't sure.
It was a cool scene though. I liked it. Yeah.
I know when I saw it, I was like, this tangentially, like, because it made me remember how I felt when I was like, oh, I'm dyslexic. And I looked into everything dyslexia affects. And I'm like, oh, my speaking. Oh, my thinking. Oh, good. Oh, the way I like process information in general. And then also my migraines. I'm like, oh, sinus drainage, brain fog. I can hear noises that aren't there. Well, that explains things. And it's just like it like affects so much more of you than like there are so many things that are suddenly explained. And I was like, et tu, Cinder, et tu. Even though that's not how that quote works. I still felt it.
I was looking up other sci-fi tropes, and the only other one was like planetary romance, which I think she does it differently because, you know, usually someone goes to a planet and falls in love with an alien or something, and I'm like, this is kind of the opposite, where he doesn't know.
She just brings the alien to him. That's all. Fine.
She also doesn't know she's an alien. Oh my god, the
Indeed.
part where Kai is like, how much of it was a glamour broke my heart. I'm like, oh my god, the emotions.
I'm like, so valid. So valid. He's all like, I've been chasing after this girl like a puppy who has lost their owner, and she is my owner. How much of that puppy was just me? How much was it making? How much was it her?
Yeah, I did. I quite liked the book. It hit all the places it was supposed to hit. So, except, I mean, maybe the world building of the super mega countries, that was a little bit flimsy.
She had some bias. She likes Australia, the UK apparently. I was trying to remember other.
Most of the places it was pretty good, I gotta say. Hold on, where are my banners? Get out here. My favorite discussion topic: themes, symbols, and le motifs.
Go ahead, Violet, start us off.
Okay, well, I mean, I would have to say, of course, there has to be a theme about it's not about
prejudice,
disability, racism.
I mean, I was trying to formulate this in maybe a poetic sweeping statement.
This is what you're getting from us.
But just random screaming one-word answers also works. Yeah. Not what you're lacking. It's about what you have. It's
using what you got.
Yeah, it's not about your deficiencies. It's about what you do have, you know?
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah. That was pretty lame. But if I would have had more time, not like I didn't pick this
Like
book
a
as the
month?
official pick, like in advance.
One thing I think could work as a symbol is Cinder's foot. Because it comes
Tis-
back again and
tis
again.
the
And
cover.
sticks through the whole series, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the way
It
that whole
does.
thing culminates, yes.
She's
my
got
gosh.
a compartment there.
I mean, the foot did make the cover.
Mm-hmm. And just like what it represents in her life, what it ends up, because I don't want to spoil it, what it represents to other people when things happen.
Oh, I'm glad that I picked that as the symbol for the Discord channel. Okay.
Violet, read book 2.
Yeah, the foot.
Book 2 has my favorite couple, so I need you to read Scarlet.
Interesting. You're not my favorite couple.
Doesn't have to be. It's fine. I know who I am.
No, very fair.
I have no shame.
I mean, another motif. I'm saying this as if I had listed a bunch of motifs.
I don't know. I think anything I may have had for this section, I already talked about in other sections.
Oh! What about, like the smear of grease on her face? Is that a symbol? No, not really.
It does come back. She gets
It does,
grease
yeah. It
on
comes
the
back.
gloves.
Yeah, the smear of grease and dirt, like.
Embracing who you are, not hiding behind glamours and shit.
Yeah. Maybe it's
being afraid of seeing who you really are, like being
like
afraid of
real
being
life
vulnerable and
is
being
messy,
yourself.
and seeing the mess of real life and not trying to
Control. I would also say that control and lack of control of your
Yeah,
situation is a
for
big
sure.
thing, especially with the way that the Lunars can't, like, that's one of the big fears about them, right? Is that they can control.
Brainwash you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the truth
They can
is
control your feelings and your thoughts.
Sometimes the truth is dirty and messy, but it's better to
It's better to see the ugly truth than fall for a beautiful lie.
That's it.
I like that.
We got it,
Also-
guys.
I'm pretty sure I'm quoting.
We workshopped
something
that one.
I
We
don't really
workshopped
know
that
what
one,
it was.
but we got there in the end. We workshopped it. We got there in the end.
Did he were the gloves that he gave her white?
They were white and then immediately stained.
I was like, what? Who thought that was a good idea? Like,
Give a mechanic some fancy white gloves.
I'm like, hi, you're such a teenager.
You're
You're such a rich teenager.
Oh my god, the class
so
divisions.
expressive.
It's so obvious
Classism.
throughout.
There was another theme that I was gonna say.
This book
Continue
just picks a
talking,
lot
it'll
of the
come
big
back to me.
ones.
There's the mom at the beginning who doesn't want her child playing near her booth, and that's the boy she ends up saving with the cure.
Oh yeah.
So that really came. I thought that was a really good way to like show how people were reacting to cyborgs, and then I didn't kind of expect that to come back around, and I was like, oh my god.
Superstition versus reality is a really big thing because like they keep calling the Lunar's abilities magic and stuff, and like the doctor he keeps saying, he's like, don't call it magic. He's like, don't give it that power. He's like, it's science. It has a scientific explanation. Mm-hmm. He's like, a scientific way of working. It works off of electrical impulses and the way that brains receive information and everything. He's like, there's a very scientific thing, like to the point that Lynn Guerin had created a scientific solution to it, to both like take away or help lunars control their powers and to protect humans from being able to be affected by it. But like, because the average person and everything calls it magic and perceives it as magic, it makes it this like much bigger, scarier thing that makes them feel defenseless.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that's part of the whole big thing with lunar society too, is they're like, well, can't like somebody other than Lavanna become like the queen? And they're like, no, because they think that there's something inherently powerful and sacred about the royal bloodline, and that's why they have to be in charge. So I think that like there's a lot of commentary on superstitions and how that can control, like it feeds into the greater like theme of control and breaking away from that.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed the book. I think really solid. Do we have any closing thoughts?
Watch my vlog if you guys want in-depth thoughts on the rest of the series. It's only an hour long.
I watched the beginning of it, and then after the Cinder part, I stopped watching because I didn't want to be spoiled.
Oh, that's a good
Understand.
idea. That's a good idea. Because I'm still in the middle of Scarlet, so I was like, I will watch that once I've reread everything.
Mars, DM me. We have much to discuss. I need to know who your favorite couple is.
Final thoughts.
I like the series as a whole. I enjoyed book 1. I like Puppy Kai.
Well, I mean, I do plan to continue. I mean, as you guys said, you have continued already. I'm just waiting on my library hold. So, I mean, I haven't continued in a lot of the Nostalgia Train books, so it's definitely a good stamp that I am continuing in this one. So,
Peony and Pearl's names both start with P's, and I think represent white things, but otherwise have nothing in common, and that for some reason grates on my nerves. But
Get picky with the issues now.
I don't know why. That's like, it's just the thing. Every time I hear their names, I'm like, why?
Did not even think about that. Just thought 2 P names. Why not?
What were their names in the original?
I don't remember. Their names are different in every version. Sometimes they don't even have names. They're just like,
I know in the Disney version, the one is Drusilla and
Anastasia. And actually
Anastasia,
in the sequels, Anastasia and Cinderella actually get a close friendship, and Cinderella helps Anastasia break away from their mother and marry a baker.
I do remember that.
Peony and Cinder's relationship.
Is that the time traveling one?
No, that's Cinderella Stitch in Time. I'm
I heard
Cinderella 2. Stitch in Time is the third one, I think.
Okay.
Did not see the time travel one.
I heard that one's really good.
Oh, that's like the stepmother. It's kind of like also an alternative thing, because the stepmother gets a hold of the fairy godmother's wand and then uses that to go back in time to get Anastasia engaged to the prince. And then like, it's a whole mess.
Interesting.
My favorite part is when like the prince is he's running. Oh, because the stepmother like sold Cinderella off on a ship or something, and
poor Cinderella.
The prince found out, and he's gonna like try to go, meet Cinderella and be like, hey, no, I know it's you. And his father's like, don't you take one more step down those stairs. And he looks at the window and he goes, okay. And then just fucking yeets himself out the window in the most comedic manner possible.
Yeah, some of those
to do it.
Those like direct to DVD Disney sequels got like crazy.
Okay, important question. A Cinderella story or another Cinderella story?
I forget which one is which.
Which one's another?
Another Cinderella story is the Selena Gomez one. A Cinderella story is the
Hilary Duff one.
Hilary Duff. I could not think of her name.
I have to go with the Hilary Duff one.
Hilary
I don't
Duff one,
even
yeah.
remember if I genuinely like it more, but the stepmother in that movie, like, okay, so my mom has this thing where if whenever like I complained or whined, she'd be like, "Wah, you want a cookie?" Right? Well, in that movie, the stepmother has a plate of cookies, and she like tells Cinderella, she's like, "Do you want a cookie?" And I looked at my mother and I go, "At least she has a plate of cookies." And my mom just goes, "Wah, you want a cookie?" So,
Okay, get in your closing thoughts because I'm putting the spoiler banner down. If you have any spoiler thoughts.
I gave them.
Yeah,
All my
okay,
thoughts are gone.
good. I shall now promo for next month. In March, we are having a Green Week readathon. It will be from the 15th to the 21st. The group read is Looking for Alaska. There will be a Discord event channel opening soon and an announcement video posted when I make it. So look forward to that if you want to read some John Green books with us next month or Looking for Alaska. So, and I also just checked the Year of Favorites and somebody had Anthropomorphine Review as a favorite. So still counts. Again, always a crossover going on. So every month we're crossing over somehow, Lynn.
I love it.
That's all I had to promo. Do you guys have to promo anything?
I promoted my vlog. That's good enough.
Pretty
Mars, I heard
Woman
you.
tonight.
Mars, I thought you had a new a cover on your book.
Oh, go buy my book. I wrote a book, and it has a shiny new cover. I don't
You
actually
already own the book. Buy the new
I didn't order it.
edition. Collect them.
Collect them all.
I mean, some of us buy 80 editions of other books. We can have 2 of Mars's.
Good point.
Oh.
That felt
no,
like
you can
a
end it.
Jess call out.
I call it's a me call out. Do you know how many?
Okay.
Do you know how many editions of Ocarina of Time I own? Like 8. It's not a book, but like I apply this to books too.
I did check. The Year of Favorites Google Doc is posted in the announcements from the Wild Magic. So last month. So you can find it in there if you want to join us. That's really all I have going on right now. I'm doing a lot of reading.
Yay for all the reading. So, yeah, thank you for everybody for coming and hanging out. And Michael says thanks, bye. Anne was here and says I have 2 of Mars's books. Anne is the conductor for next month. And yeah, that's all. Thank you everybody for being here today. And I have to press the button wherever the button is.